Welcome everybody, today I'm covering the Build 42.19 update that just dropped. And much like the previous few patches, it seems to be heavily focused on fixes, which does lend itself well to the idea that Build 42 Stable isn't so far away. So, before we jump into the patch notes, let's check out the blog post. I'm so used to calling these Thursdoids, but they're dropping them on Fridays now, which kind of ruins the whole Thursdoid thing. So, reinforcing the barricades. Previously, the Indiestone announced that Project Zomboid would be moving to external localization for Build 42 and beyond. However, after trying this process out and then mixing in many separate changes and recent improvements to our workflow, we believe that the extended future of both the game and community would be better served by returning to the community translation model that we had been so proud of up to and through Build 41. To explain our reasoning, in hindsight, one reason we initially put a halt on community translation is simply because our pipeline was too unwieldy and our processes weren't good enough backstage to manage the data flow. Now, with coders experienced in this field who have worked with a very similar setup on the Minecraft Java edition, which provides support for 100 languages, we can supply a far more engaging, interactive, and collaborative setup to benefit the languages we intend to support, and those who are going to miss out on participating. In switching to an external localization team, we realized that we were putting a decade's worth of known and loved phrases, titles, and terminology at a degree of risk. Through the full gamut of the game, modding, and localization, the new PZ team leaders view community as vital and something we want to deep dive into on all fronts. And not ignoring its history and how things have formally come to be is a big part of this. Looking forward, the community translation model is a smoother and more organic way of supporting our style of development in terms of the way we run an unstable beta, feature integration, and patching. For those working on the game too, it's less stop-start, allows for a constant drip feed of edits, fixes, and improvements in every update we make, and brings more flexibility in terms of not being hemmed in by looming localization deadlines. Above all, it fits so much better with the collaborative mindset of many members of our team, both new and old. It's a project model that just feels more like the PZ way. And if you would like to help translate the game directly, they have provided some contact details to do so. This game is infinitely more fun with friends, and thanks to Pine hosting, I set up my very own Project Zomboid Build 42 server, and it couldn't have been any easier. Whether it's just you and a friend, or a big modded public server, you can get set up within minutes. Their high-performance servers have global locations, DDoS protection, and quality support when you need it. Easily tailor the settings with the intuitive server panel, and add all of those incredible mods using the workshop installer, or even go hands-off and let the AI assistant take care of everything. Plus, it's not just Project Zomboid, they offer hosting for a wide range of games, from 7 Days to Die to Valheim, The Isle, and more. So, if you'd like to host your very own server to play with your friends, you can use code AWP to get 30% off your order. Use the link in the description or pinned comment to help support the channel and get yourself a deal. And then they have a section on controller customization, which we will dive into deeper in the patch notes, but they said, controller players know that the team has been hard at work to bring new functionality to controllers, first adapting the Build 42 aiming system to gamepads, then following up with sensitivity and mapping adjustments based on player feedback. Because we recognize that Project Zomboid is an interface-heavy game, and knowing that many controller players are coming from other styles of games and even other platforms, we made the decision that instead of continuing to adjust default button mapping configurations, it was more efficient to implement custom button mapping. This system allows players to remap the controller as they see fit. It's important to note that the game will allow you to remap multiple inputs to a single button, so keep in mind that you may be able to set up some conflicting configurations, but we felt the risk of this is outweighed by players who may come up with cool contextual setups. Additionally, some controllers have more inputs than traditional sets, so some extra buttons may not be mappable in the current iteration. We are actively seeking your feedback and would also love to see your favorite controller maps. You never know, your layout could end up being a default option. Now, every time I speak about controllers in this game, I get a few guaranteed comments asking why on earth people would use controller. And from the outset, that makes sense. But in reality, there are multiple reasons why. Not everybody has a PC, and there are a lot of Steam Deck players, which of course requires playing with controller. You also have the split screen players, which is actually one of my favorite ways to play. But of course, one of you will have to use controller. And also there's people with accessibility issues who may find controller easier and such. So this is definitely a positive, and who knows, maybe one day the controller gets perfected and it could be a smash hit on console. And then they move on to the balance, fixes, and more stability. We'll get into that in the patch notes. But first, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the future update videos. Starting out is the new section, which is probably the smallest one I have seen yet. That's a lie actually, I just got out of the shower and looked in the mirror. Anyway, they added extended idle animations when seated on the floor. They added controller remapping, which we touched on. So moving on to balance, where they updated the color of the discomfort moodle to better differentiate from unhappy. The hunter trait no longer receives +1 trapping and now receives +1 tracking. And the hiker trait cost has been changed from -6 to -5. They adjusted the encumbrance values of several items and movable objects, increased the amount of thread required to weave a fabric roll from 100 to 400. And that is a big difference. A little overboard on that one. Now, railroad track and railroad track pieces have been removed until they are properly implemented as crafting ingredients. And that leads us on to the UI, where they added a vertical scroll bar to the survival guide text. A helpful feature that was recently improved, so maybe you should check it out again. They reworked the user list window UI and removed the obsolete Choose Mods button from the server settings mod panel. Fixed some icons from overflowing in the animal tracks info window. Fixed feeding trough info UI widening indefinitely after being pinned. Fixed survival guide text rendering outside the panel. Fixed tooltips for the animal breeding season and animal info. They also fixed blood decals drop-down menu in options showing 2 percentage signs. Fixed the foraging info button not linking to the survival guide. And fixed equipped walkie-talkie right mouse click menu not having device options. And then we come back around to take a proper look at the controller, where they added new gamepad customization UI. And here's how it looks. It shows you the response of the controller, and you can set any button to do anything you'd like. As a non-experienced controller player, I wouldn't know exactly how to set this up, but I'm sure somebody in the community will come up with a best case layout. They also made a whole load of controller input fixes. Added the ability to press the X button to clear text entries. Fixed controller issues in map spawn select and load game screen. Fixed grab corpse binding not also dropping corpses. Fixed the A button not toggling the ingredient inputs panel in the build window. Fixed controllers not being able to smash windows from the button prompt with the default B/circle button. Fixed being unable to interact with some crafting stations on controller. Fixed controllers not working in world map. Fixed navigating the add note menu on controller, creating errors and locking the player. Fixed aiming left or right on controller, also aiming slightly downwards. And fixed show the survival guide on startup setting, preventing players from performing several actions on controller. I can imagine for those controller players out there, it's been very frustrating, but it does seem we are heading in the right direction for sure. And then we have the multiplayer section, where they restored ban IP and unban IP on Steam servers for direct connections. Fixed weapon magazines disappearing after reloading. Fixed an exploit that allowed players to recover endurance constantly. They fixed the consolidate action, creating item duplicates. Fixed an instance of killed zombies duplicating on server reconnect. Fixed an instance of zombies disappearing. And fixed local split screen players not seeing each other in the game world. Honestly guys, if you've never tried split screen and you have someone who you think may be down to play it, you should definitely get on their case until they do, because it is very, very fun. They fixed animals in the trailer disappearing after relogging. fixed some animals being visible to one player but invisible to another, fixed players being able to sit together on the same furniture. They fixed a server-side exception while exercising, spawning animals, and adding or removing animal corpses in trailers. They fixed fire sprites not rendering inside buildings, scrap jewelry not adding gems to the player's inventory until after relogging, fixed zombie animation on stairs, being unable to add ingredients to a drying rack from the ground, fixed towels not getting wet in the rain, fixed zombies not trampling crops. They fixed player animation when getting up after bumping into a tree or zombie, and being unable to craft different items immediately after producing several identical items in a row. Fixed sleeping with high encumbrance causing critical damage or character death. Fixed inconsistent XP gain for sneaking and light-footed skills during stealth movement. Fixed incorrect animal icons being displayed in the inventory. Fixed performing a medical check several times, breaking the medical check window UI in multiplayer. And lastly, they fixed a number of UI scaling issues at smaller resolutions in multiplayer. I'm sure you're already bored of the word fix by now, so let's check out the other sounds in the sound effects section, where they adjusted the sound effects volumes to bring all audio levels into a more balanced state. They added new sound effects for vehicle containers, and new sound effects for stepping on leaf tiles, added unique engine start failure sound effects for each vehicle type, added new sound effects for vending machines, log stacks, mailboxes, cash registers, washers, dryers, tents, and laundry carts, alongside added ambient sound effects to large and small ventilation objects, and ambient sound effects for water tanks and fluorescent tube lights, though these are a work in progress and may not play in all circumstances. Honestly, all of those sound good, and I think the more sound effects the better, and I'm not talking crazy MrBeast YouTube edit style sound effects. The you know, that exact one that we hear all the time. But the things like the fluorescent tube lights and ventilation objects, just very subtle background ambient noises. That stuff just makes it much more immersive and really brings the world together. Also now, the popcorn machine has an appropriate on and off sound. They reworked the system for item transfer sound effects. And the zombie trip sound effects has been increased to 70 tiles. The door break, thumpable break, and window glass break sound effects ranges have been increased to 70 tiles. And the zombie vocal sound effects range has been increased to 70 tiles. Now that's interesting. The past few updates we have had quite a few increases in sound effects range, be it from gunshots, vehicles and more. So on solo or multiplayer, you're going to be hearing a lot more noises around you. They fixed the sound effects for sit on ground action not syncing properly with its animation, fixed slicing bread, cake or pie not using the appropriate sound effects, fixed curtains not playing sounds when opening and closing in multiplayer, the vehicle engine sound not being audible to remote clients in multiplayer at long ranges, fixed audio from 3D placed power on walkie-talkies or radios not playing until after reloading the chunk, and fixed sprinters playing shambler audio and vice versa. Okay, so it looks like the biggest upgrade in this patch might be to our ears, or the hands of the controller players. And moving on to the fixes, which I have massively cut down as always, where they fixed a rendering issue that could impact performance. This should improve performance while driving through towns. Okay, let me test that right now because that has been one of the biggest issues in recent updates. So as you can see, it is still not perfect, but I will say it does feel a bit better. It seems I have somehow missed out a feature in the patch notes. I'm in debug mode right now, and do you guys see anything different? Because it's this random button down here right below the debug menu. The animation and action recording. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. This will be coming up in the next section. One weird bug I've noticed whilst recording this video though is, for some reason, either my inventory or the ground bar keeps disappearing, even though they're both pinned. That's quite annoying, and I don't know why it's happening. They fixed all animals being female, which I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about, unless you're into that type of thing. Fixed severe performance issues occurring when generator tile range is set to a high value. Fixed issue causing trailers to flip after attaching if the car is too close to it. Fixed some media items teaching the wrong recipes. Fixed being unable to hop over low concrete road blocks. That's a nice one. Fixed changing resolution in-game causing crashes. Fixed auto drink so that it now only applies to 100% water. What and why? If you missed it, go and check it out, but I made a video on the hidden mechanics in this game, and one of them was fight milk, where as long as your drink is 51% water, you can mix in anything you like, maybe milk, alcohol, bit of bleach, and your character would auto drink it. But now it's only for water. That's an interesting one. I'm interested to know why they changed that. Was it accidental drinking of lethal things killing people? Because if so, maybe they could add a toggle for auto drink or not per liquid container. So I wouldn't say that was a fix, or more of a butcher. But they did fix engineer and farmer not granting all of their intended crafting recipes. Fixed the inventive trait from the DIY expert occupation not auto-learning the generator recipe. Fixed zombies being unable to crawl under burned vehicles. Fixed generator fuel consumption not being calculated correctly while outside loaded chunks. Fixed gas station pumps not properly recognizing available electricity. Fixed player freezing until pressing escape after firing lever action rifles from inside a vehicle. Fixed issues with some movables caused by tile properties, being unable to disassemble log gate, and visual bugs related to floor tile properties. Fixed item clipping caused by incorrect tile surface heights, and fixed certain roof tiles preventing the creation of floor tiles. Alright, not long to go now. I won't say the word fix too many more times, but to those of you still watching, I appreciate you. I've been struggling with motivation and procrastination, but when you guys leave comments and support me, it really does give me the push to keep making these videos. They fixed walkie-talkies remaining on when returned to about hotbar slot. Fixed animal weight changing after being placed on a butchering hook and removed. Fixed tainted status still appearing in tooltip for tainted water when the sandbox option to display it was turned off. Fixed animals being visible through walls and solid barriers. Fixed hydration packs not gaining encumbrance when filled with water. Fixed being unable to pick up an animal corpse. And washing machines having unlimited water even when plumbed to empty rain collectors. They fixed animal stats not properly updating while outside loaded chunks. Fixed zombies dying when impacted by vehicles at low speeds. Fixed visual errors occurring when building near or on water. And water tiles sometimes being rendered twice, causing flickering along the shore. Which leads us on to the final section of Technical/Debug, where they added an ARF recording button in Debug to assist with bug reports. So that's what it's all about, making sure bug reports can be easily duplicated and therefore fixed. Removed unnecessary console output when reducing weapon head condition, and fixed being unable to open doors with keys obtained through debug, objects, get building key. So yeah, not a lot of new things today, but plenty of fixes, which overall is good for the game, not particularly for these videos, but either way, I hope you did enjoy, learned something new, or even had it on your second monitor to fill the silence. I thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Have an amazing day, and peace.